So the next speaker is someone I had the privilege of actually meeting about 2 months ago when I was in Aruba, not for the Aruba trip with our people, but with the Aruba trip with a group I'm in called the Mavericks. And I got to hear him, the feedback was great. People absolutely loved it and it made a huge difference. And when people are seeking clarity about their business or personal life and how to integrate the two, working business with personal, they call on this guy. And his name's Philip McKernan. He's uncovered that people's unhealthy relationship to money and their inability to get in touch with their own intuition inhibits their ability to gain the clarity they need to live an authentic and meaningful life. With a knack of getting into all sorts of scenarios, he's caddied in golf for the President of Ireland, been chased and nearly killed by a bull elephant in Nigeria, made wine in Australia, works with orphans all over the world, has written 4 books despite being dyslexic, and the list goes on and on. His wife would say life is never dull with Philip around. Philip's sole focus is helping people create a life that means something and make money doing it. Can I please welcome to the stage Mr. Philip McKernan.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. When I was about 14 years old, I used to often sit in the classroom in the school in Ireland that I used to go to. And as ashamed I am of this story, there's a purpose to it. I used to find myself counting the dandruff on the back of the student in front of me. Why? Because it represented the perfect eye level so I wouldn't be noticed. It wasn't too high that I would catch the teacher's attention, and it wasn't too low that I'd be staring at the ground and definitely get her attention or his attention. Because I was paranoid that at any moment I'd be asked to read out loud. For most people, that's not an issue. But when you're dyslexic, and you struggle with even just reading and writing, that's something that you don't want people to know. It's also allowed me not to go absolutely insane. For 12 years of schooling, sitting in a classroom for 8 hours a day with a knot in my stomach because at any moment I was afraid that I'd be caught out. I share that story with you not to gross you out, even though it is kind of gross. But I stand here in front of you today, and I've written 4 books, 2 with a major publishing house, and I've just released my 4th. I'm not trying to impress you, but I'm trying to impress upon you the shit that we as human beings can do. Jason kicked off this event and talked about belief. And that's partly what I will talk about today. Inner belief. I'm also going to touch on clarity. So, when I left school, I went into the business world, and I set about the idea was to go in and make a lot of money. And I often ignored my calling. I always had this feeling inside of myself that I had some sort of calling that was bigger and better than the business world that I found myself in the industry that I was in. But I didn't have what I call the clarity in terms of what my calling was, what my purpose was, what my destiny was. And the other thing I didn't have was money. And I used it as a reason not to pursue my passion. So every one of you in this room should have a $1 note in front of you, a $10,000 note. Don't hold it up to the light, you don't need to. Trust me, it's fake. Although I will tell you something that it's kind of funny. My wife packed all of these, like I brought these down from Vancouver. I'm from Ireland. Anybody from Ireland? Okay, 3 people. They're the 3 people who obviously want to have fun this weekend. Anyway, so My wife packed these into the top of my case because I was running a retreat and I came back. And I got onto the plane in Vancouver, Canada, and I went to put my bag up and it wouldn't fit up on top. So I had to take it down and unzip. And as I unzipped the outside, about 20 of these packages with all these fake notes fell out all over the table and all over the chairs and onto the ground. And you want to see the looks I got. It was unbelievable. Anyway, I digress. So what I'd like you to do, okay? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take a moment and consider how you feel about money. And I'm going to make this really easy. I'm going to ask you to pick one word that describes how you feel or how you hold money. In other words, what money represents to you. Only one word. That was sarcasm, by the way. And I'm going to ask you to write that down on the note. Right now, please. Just one word that summarizes how you feel about money. Okay. A few people share, please. Freedom. Anything else? Cool? Excited? Energy? Okay, so often, I've never done this in a big scale like this. I've done this at smaller kind of retreats, etc. Often people use words like power and freedom, and then you have some of the negative things like guilt and shame and necessary evil and so on and so forth. I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong, but I just want to create some awareness around how you hold money. Because if you think money is going to buy you absolute freedom, if you think money is power, if you think money, what I'm saying is ultimately what I'm offering you, what I'm challenging you on is not to hold money in such high esteem. It's important, but it's not often as important as we make it out to be. Often it's the things that we don't have in our lives that we give a shitload of power to. I meet people who are single and they really, really deep down don't believe they're going to be happy until they meet somebody. I'm working with some of the wealthiest men and women in the world. I'm working with men and women who have no money and are trying to be the wealthiest in the world. And the dysfunctionality, dare I say it, or unhealthy relationship that I see people having with money is controlling much of their life. And I'm here to talk about making money, but not at the cost of your happiness. Not at the cost of meaning in your life. So when I go back to Ireland, when I left school and I was in the business world, my big challenge is I didn't have the clarity about what I wanted in the future. Anybody in this room seeking clarity about an aspect of their life? A lot of people. But you know, if I go back to say, there was a session yesterday, and I can't remember all the people's names, but I think there was a guy called Shane who talked about analysis paralysis in the context of picking a product. It's kind of convenient in one sense. Because if you think about it, if somebody asks you in a year from now, and 6 months from now, and 3 months from now, how did that Amazon thing go? How is it going for you online? How many units have you sold? So, well, I haven't found my product. So I'm going to talk a bit about moving through this block that we call a lack of clarity in a few minutes. So I set out to build a real estate portfolio to give myself the financial freedom to then go and do what I love. To then go and do what I love. Because I didn't have, ultimately, the inner belief within myself that I could do what I do now every single day. I believed I need financial freedom in order to do that, to give myself the freedom to do that. But here's the problem. Every time I reached a financial goal, a business aspiration, I acquired more real estate, I found myself at the top of this mountain with an eerie sense of emptiness. Standing on the top of that mountain, looking across the horizon, going, is this it? Is this all it was meant to be? And then I'd look across the horizon and go, I know the problem. I climbed the wrong mountain. Now that mountain in the distance over there, when I climb that, then I'll be happy. And I'd come down off the mountain, which is a metaphor for life, for business, for whatever happens. I'd head across the meadows. I'd go across the valley, which took me a year, 2 years, 4 years. And I'd climb another mountain, and I'd still face the same eerie emptiness. And all the while, I had my head buried firmly in the sand. or somewhere else that I wouldn't mention. And I finally had the courage to take my head out of the sand and say, what really is missing in my life? And it came down to meaning. I didn't really have a whole lot of meaning in my life. I told myself I did. Intellectually, I convinced myself I did. But intuitively, the truth was I didn't have a very meaningful life. So I decided to dissect my life and look and break it into 3 elements. The work that I do, the 3 key relationships to the work that I do, the relationship with self, and the relationship to other people. If anybody's taking notes right now, I'd like you and I'd encourage you not to take notes. And I know you're going to stand there and go, but hang on a second, Philip, this is how I learn. I don't want you to learn. We're consumed with information today. Never in the history of mankind have we had such accessibility and levels of information. What I want you to do is I want you to be open emotionally to moving today. So put your pen down, please. I'm not demanding, I'm not telling you to, I'm asking you to. And be open to the fact that you might receive a gift that will move you emotionally, move that internal belief needle, that you'll never have to reflect on your notes ever again. Ever. So from moving from 3 key elements of life to 3 key elements of an Irish person's life, allow me to tell you a little story. So a guy walks into a bar one day in Ireland. It's not a joke. Well, necessarily, I don't know. You decide. And he orders 3 pints of Guinness. And the barman says, will I hold the other 2 until your friends arrive? And he goes, no, I'll have the 3 right now. So the barman brings the 3 pints of Guinness, he puts them down on the table in front of this man, he starts to sip out of the first, sip out of the second, and sip out of the third. And he does this continually until all the pints are gone, pays for his drinks, and leaves. And the barman's going, that is one of the oddest, weirdest things I have ever seen. A month later, he comes in, 3 pints. Same thing happens. And this goes on for about 6 months. And finally, the barman says, I just can't help myself. He walks up to me and says, what's going on with the 3 pints? And he goes, I should have explained. It's a bit odd, isn't it? He goes, well, kind of. He said, well, my 2 brothers live away, and what we do is every month we meet in an Irish bar in different parts of the world, and we kind of like a little pilgrimage. It's a little salute to the other people, the other brothers. And I sit here and I kind of pretend I'm drinking with my brothers. And the guy says, okay, it's thinking to himself, it's still a bit odd, but I kind of get it now. And off he goes. So this goes on for months, and eventually the Irish guy walks into the bar one day, and he walks in a bit like this, and the energy's low. And he looks up, and the barman says, 3 pints, John? He says, just the 2. And he goes, the barman goes, oh my God, he says, one of the brothers has died. So he brings the 2 pints of Guinness down and puts them down in front of the Irish guy, and the Irish guy picks up the pint and starts sipping into it. The barman's walking away, and he turns around, and the Irish guy's sipping out of the 2nd pint, and he goes, listen, I'm sorry about your brother. And as the Irish guy wipes the froth off his mouth, he looks at me and goes, oh, no, don't worry, no, it's me, I've given up the drink. I share that with you because I wanted the 3 people who want to have fun to laugh, obviously. But I want to make a point. And that is that we are absolutely masterful at justifying and rationalizing what we do as human beings. I often say that we're masters of 2 things, complicating our lives and then justifying why we do it. We're brilliant. So what I'd like you to do is to be open to a different conversation today. Okay? Just a different conversation, a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling, and a different way of living. And try not to force what you know and what you think to be true to push the message away. So what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on work. Okay, we're just going to focus on the one element, and we're going to lean into this conversation as best we can in the time that I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to illustrate this using what I call a business life cycle. And I say attempt, okay? So I'm going to attempt to speak to as many as you can in terms of seeking clarity in the context of your business and maybe moving through some roadblocks that you face every single day. So when I sit down with a business owner or a person who wants to create a business, I will often approach it with the same principles. They'll often be very consumed with the bottom line. An existing business will want more revenue. They want looking for strategic ways of creating more revenue streams, increasing their revenue model, or actually increasing their net profit. Some people are very focused on building a better team. And what I'll do is I'll bring them back up to the business vision. And I'll say, what is the vision for the business? And often they will have viewed this or looked at this or spent time in this in the early days. And sometimes they forget to come back and constantly remind themselves, what is this business really all about? But I can tell you one thing, I have yet to be proven wrong, that if anybody is struggling in business in any of these three areas, quadrants, I guarantee you, when you go back to the personal vision, it's unclear. Every single time. They will tell you, oh, no, it's crystal clear. No, it's absolutely clear. I know exactly what I want for my life. And I'll say, great, explain it to me. And it's all over the place. What is a business, or what should a business be designed to do? There's a question. Make money? Profit? I believe a business should have no other function than doing one other thing, and that is to support what it is you want to do personally. That's my view. You may not agree with that, but that is my view. But we'll come back to that in a few minutes. So when I was in this space in my life, and I was making very, very good money, I was climbing those mountains of life, and I recognized that I didn't have a lot of meaning, and I started to get into the speaking world. I created a little exercise called the 5 Happiest Days. Doesn't sound very complex or very sophisticated, but what it actually meant in the end of the day for my life was tremendous, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. But for the moment, I'm going to ask you to name, reflect upon, think, and sit with 2 of the happiest days of your life. Now, before you start writing, before you start thinking, I don't want it to be the happiest day from 9 o'clock in the morning till 12 midnight that night. It just could have been a moment. It could have been a smile. It could have been a hug. It could have been a conversation. It could have been an event. It could have been a group of people. And I'd like you to consider, what are the happiest days of your life? I'd like you to identify minimum 2, please, and write them down. Often a lot more difficult than you might think. Okay, just 1 or 2. They don't have to be perfect. We're not looking for the best. We're just looking for 2 happy days in your life, or 2 very, very happy days in your life. It's often interesting that if I asked you to do a list, I'm not speaking for this audience, but often different audiences. If I asked you to write down a list of the crappiest days that you've had in your life, people would be asking for more paper. But yet you ask people to identify some of the happiest days, it's not necessarily that easy. So can somebody share? Going on a road trip. Were you on your own? Yeah. Anybody else? Can I walk down here? Is that okay? Can you hear me? Just like, marrying your husband.
2 of them. Buying a boat and selling a boat.
Buying a boat and selling a boat, okay.
Paris, with the family.
With the family, okay, great, thank you. Somebody else?
Birth of my daughters.
Birth is your daughters. Same time or different days, different years? Okay, great. Pick one daughter. Which was the best? Okay, this might be recorded. I won't ask you to do that. This gentleman here. Jumping off a plane. Jumping off a plane. Okay, we need to talk later on, okay? This gentleman here. Running with bulls. Okay, this lady here. Son said, I love you, mommy. Okay, so here's the interesting thing is that most of these, and what you'll find is probably 95% of them, if you go around the room with everybody, are relating to relationships with self or relationships with other people. Okay? Now, I'll tell you why is this important. So when I did this exercise myself, sorry about the feedback. I know I maybe shouldn't walk down here. I can't help myself. When I did this exercise, myself and my wife split up in this living room. We went to different sides of the room. And I could hear her giggling away as she did her 5 happiest days, and I did my 5 happiest days. And then we come back and we meet in the middle. And I said, what was yours? And she goes, my wedding day. And I'm thinking, crap. And she goes, what about you? And I went, it's kind of around the wedding day, kind of. It's kind of my stag party. Or my books party, as you might call it in the United States. And she goes, so she had one of those interesting, well, it was a kind of an interesting few moments. Anyway. And then, of course, the beauty about this really simple exercise is not just identifying the happiest days and then rating them from 1 to 5, but then understanding why. Why? What was it about that day? What was it about the wedding day? Because it's not about the wedding, it's about the day. What was that emotion? So for me, this is a very old photograph, not that old, maybe I'm not that old, but an old photograph of the stag party that I ran. And what we did is we brought 25 guys to the west coast of Ireland, locked them in a little castle, and did a workshop on personal growth. I didn't do it because they wouldn't have listened to me. And then we came out of the castle, we went down the road in a bus, and we pretended the bus got stuck or caught in the ditch, and everyone had to bail off the bus, and the bus buggered off and left us in the middle of nowhere. And we walked this road, which is about 5,000 years old, an ancient green road on Ireland's west coast, and the conversations that happened were extraordinary. And when I started to really reflect on it, because I believe life leaves clues if we're open to them. And I started to really deeply reflect, what was it about this day that impacted me so much? And I tried to tell myself it was this and that, but the bottom line was that I played a part in impacting these men's lives. Because when they left that session, some of them gave up smoking, some of them changed their eating habits, some of them gave up girlfriends, literally, and so on. They needed to, and so on. And they made changes in their lives, but I couldn't take any ownership of that for years. And I finally couldn't ignore it anymore, and years later I decided I'm going to create experiences based on my happiest days to bring meaning into my life, and I'm going to give it a go. This is the same road 4 years ago or 3 years ago when I created the first experience where I now bring people to Ireland to experience this, seeking their own clarity. But the biggest challenge for me was I didn't believe I was good enough. Who's going to listen to me? I don't have an education, I'm dyslexic. I'm not particularly good enough in my own skin, and I gave myself all that self-talk. And 4 years ago, I pulled the trigger. And now I have the honor and the privilege of working with people in not just Ireland, but all over the globe to help them gain clarity in their lives. This is not me trying to sell my business, talk about me. It's trying to impress upon you again that if you really want something, you can achieve it. So, I believe that we need to stop chasing happiness completely. I think we should need to forget about it, happiness as a concept. But if we basically set our sights, our energy, our focus towards bringing more meaning into our lives in these 3 areas, we're just naturally going to be happier. It's just going to be a byproduct. So let's bring this back to you. So how do you create meaning in an online business? So maybe you can't. You need to be open to that conversation. Maybe you can't. But that doesn't mean you need to give it up. Maybe you could identify a passionate product, one that you can get behind that has meaning and has depth to it. Something that makes a difference in other people's lives. So when you get up in the morning and you face a problem, it doesn't feel like a problem. When you face a challenge, it doesn't really feel like a challenge because you're so aligned to this product that you can get up every day, look in a camera, look in a customer's face, receive or send an email, post a product, launch a product with conviction and inner belief in that product. Do you wait 3 to 5 years to find it? No. Do you say, oh, I really want to do yoga mats? I'll say, well, there's lots of yoga mats. Why don't you just pick one and go for it? No, I want to create a different one. I want this to be like biodegradable. You don't even have to roll it out or roll it up at the end of the class or clean it, because you can kind of just kind of pull it apart and you can eat it because it's made of organic bamboo. There's nothing like it in the world. It's going to be incredible. Now, nobody makes it for good reason, but I'm going to wait until this product comes along. And then I'm going to show all those doubters and that Irish guy on that stage. I knew I didn't like him when I met him. This is one thing. I can tell you one thing. I never say I'm very good at something. But I'll tell you one thing I'm very good at, and that is taking action. In the absence of clarity, take action is a mantra that I live by. It's a statement, a quote. I live by this. If I'm standing on a fence and action is one way or the other, and I'm afraid, I'm paralyzed by fear, you just dive one way or the other. And if it goes south and it blows up in your face, well then you know. Because there's only one thing action gives you, and that is additional clarity. And the clarity is, well, I knew I shouldn't have done that, or I won't do that again. Or you go the other side, and you go, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Because you know what the problem is? What I fundamentally feel? People say public speaking is the greatest fear in the world. For the record, at the back of the room, I wanted to puke up before I came up here. Every single time. 2 people, 1,000 people, there's 3,000 people in this room, the same principle. But it's not public speaking. It's what it represents, because I'm afraid I'll walk up here and I'll say the wrong thing. Maybe it's a bit late for that now, or I'll make a fool of myself. And what I'm really afraid of when you break it down is I'm afraid of what you'll think of me. And if you are open to the idea, which I fundamentally believe, that we are obsessed by what other people think of us as human beings. We are obsessed by what our parents and by society and what our friends and our peers and everybody else thinks about us. So when I'm sitting there and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm going to call you on it. I want to challenge you on those people who haven't picked a product yet. I'm going to respectfully call bullshit, because it's kind of convenient, because if it doesn't work, I never found a product. It got lost on the way from China in the sea. I'm not trying to be condescending. People often mix up my passion with, and they think it's arrogance. Maybe it is, maybe it is. I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to those people who are legitimately sitting there searching for a product to put their name on. But at the same time, I'm going to give you a nudge to that edge. Is it really a lack of clarity? Or are you just scared shitless of finding the product because you don't want to fail? If you have a product that you're passionate about, great. If you don't, look at ways to derive meaning and passion in your life. Never settle and assume that you have passion in your life. Never look at the relationship in the bed next to you, your kids, and say, oh, my relationship with my kids are great, because with respect, it's generally benchmarked on what we personally have experienced or what we witness in the world. Never settle. Always stretch yourself and be open to a new depth in that relationship. And link your business to it. So when you wake up in the morning and you've got a product that you really don't like, and intuitively, as long as it has integrity of some sort, but you're really not aligned to it, if you can make your business not about you, you will be able to move through those challenges as if some of them don't even exist. Let me bring you back to my business life cycle. We talked about the money, we talked about the team, we talked about the business vision. Every time that someone has a challenge in those areas, I guarantee you, if you go back to the personal vision, there's a disconnect. And I would encourage every one of you to go back and sit down and say, what do I really want? Not intellectually, but intuitively. It's what I call intuitive clarity. What do I really want from this world? But often we're looking at that, or we're considering that question with a lack of belief in our heart. So we end up playing a little bit smaller than we could, or a little bit smaller than we need to. And then what we do is we get clear on what it is we want to do personally. Who we want to be, not what we want. How do we want to be remembered? What is my legacy? What do I want to be remembered when my kids put me 6 foot under the ground, burn me to dust, and sprinkle it over the beach? And then you realign your business, create a new business, or change your current business to support that. And what you'll find is then that energetically, you will be able to seek out the people that align to that business in ways that you could never have perceived before. Because I don't believe athletes have the mutual exclusive rights to flow. I've worked with Olympic athletes. I went to London a number of years ago. They invited me to work with them unofficially because I have no qualifications, so I had to go under the radar. And flow is just this state that every one of us has been in at some point, where things just start to happen, not completely on their own, but there's a fluency to life. And when you get the right team on board, what you'll find is that their revenue not just magically shows up, but they'll be more aligned, more engaged. And then finally, the revenue will support what it is you want to do personally. The challenge with this is that the top is all about vision and the bottom is all about communication. The challenge is 80% of the time most business owners spend is in the bottom tier. They spend 80% of their time considering financial revenue models and ways of making more money and building the right team. And the 20% on the top of the vision, typically 15% of that is spent on the business vision. And then what happens is our businesses consume us. We become not who we are, but what we do. And it creeps up on us. And before we know it, we're not like this person, this individual, beautiful soul. We're just an extension of our businesses because the business has consumed us. Because I believe if you look after your life off the ice, you will be able to perform and engage on the ice like never before. I really believe that. These are two clients of mine, and I just want to illustrate something really important. These are two men that came to work with me, and I don't try to be, kind of judgmental, but obviously you can see that physically they didn't look after themselves. They didn't eat particularly well, they didn't, they probably drank too much, they weren't particularly aligned to what they did professionally really well, and they didn't have great relationships in their lives. This is the same men today. But here's the thing. And that applause is at those men, not me, because my clients give me, personally, I think they give me way too much credit for the work I do. Way too much credit. But if those men were here today, and they stood on this stage, and you said, what was the one thing that changed? They will say value here. Somebody rang me recently from Paris, and they said, I'm creating a product around habits. And I notice from your work that a lot of your clients change their eating habits, eating behaviors, relationship habits, conversational habits, business habits. How do you handle habits? I said, we don't. I never discuss habits in my work. Because when you shift somebody's value, they're not going to want to have to feel that they need to get up and go to the gym. They're going to want to go to the gym. They're going to want to eat better. They're going to want to nurture their bodies. You shift the needle of value, everything else shifts. Everything else shifts. Who knows who this man is? Rory McIlroy. I won't get into that debate whether he's the best golfer in the world right now. I know my opinion, but I think he's one of the best golfers in the world right now. And this was a moment that he certainly wants to forget. And this was on the 13th tee, I believe, in Augusta National in Georgia. And this is in the midst of one of the greatest collapses in golfing history. He absolutely had a catastrophic meltdown. When the shot was taken, he literally bent over, put his hand down, wanted the ground to open up and swallow him. And if you're not a golfer, don't check out, because this is not just a golf story. This is a human story. This is a bounce-back story. This is him only 3 months later, not just winning a tournament, but winning the next major. Unheard of, never, ever before done. The extreme collapse and the absolute victory at a major. I wanted to know why. Did he change his grip? Did he change his equipment? Did he change his coach? No. Did he practice more? No. He went to Haiti, and he witnessed the devastation and the destruction in Haiti. And in that moment, he realized it's just a game. It's just a game. And he allowed himself to let it go and bounce back. So find a way to let go of the failures and the things that haven't gone well for you, because if you're holding on to them, and at some place in your life, you're kind of almost expecting them. If that's the kind of mindset that you walk into business every day, you need to find a way to let it go. My second happiest day, and thankfully my wife's second happiest day, was this time we spent in an orphanage. That's my wife on the right, my right. Yeah, you're right as well. And that's me in a pink shirt, or t-shirt on the left, looking a little bit younger. And it was an extraordinary day where we just worked with these kids for a day. And it wasn't until we did the 5 happiest day exercise that we reconnected with the power of that day. But the question next was, why? And to be able to go and to volunteer your time to show somebody that they matter, even for a day, absolutely changed my perspective on life. It allowed me to see that I can actually deliver value in this world, and I can actually make people feel valued in this world. So this is a photograph from Peru earlier this year. And now what I do is, again, I'm building this into my life. Each year I take a group away. 2 years ago I went to Guatemala. Last year we went to Peru, and this year we're going to India, I think it is. And this is a photograph of the group bringing special needs kids up this hill. These special needs kids pretty much sit in isolation. Most people don't go to visit them, and they have no outdoor area at all in this orphanage. I'm sharing this not to make you sad. I'm sharing this to create a bit of perspective in your own life, because you're sitting here today maybe looking at an issue in your life and it's become so huge in your life, but really in the context of life in general, maybe it's not that big. And if we can accept that, maybe it'll allow us to move through it, to make a decision right now not to allow that to get in our way. And I went to the organizer, and one great thing about not being able to speak Spanish is that you can kind of argue and push your way in and do things and pretend you don't understand. And I said, you don't understand. We're taking every one of these special needs kids and we're going to the park down the road. I don't need or want your permission. When I heard that they'd never been taken as a group to the park down the road, that they sit in this little cube and they have about 6 foot by 6 foot of sunlight that comes in periodically. And as we walked down the road with all these kids, people were beeping the horn and they were shouting at us. And I thought they were saying, get the F off the road. As it turns out, they were saying, thank you, amazing, well done. Thank you for coming to our country and bringing these kids out for a day. This is another orphanage we went to. And this is a young girl. We just arrived. And this is a business lady from Edmonton who came with me. And this young lady leaned into her tentatively, nervously. 6 hours later, look at the same girl's face. Look at the difference you can make, even in a day. Don't look at my face, look at hers. She painted makeup on one of my face. So imagine taking your product and linking it to something that's bigger, more beautiful, and more amazing than yourself. Imagine giving back to something, not just cutting a check, but funding something where you go annually or every 2 or 3 or 4 years. So you're selling your spatulas or whatever was mentioned the other day. And maybe you're not sexed up about spatulas. But maybe when you sell 1 million bloody spatulas and you go and you spend a day with these kids and show them that they matter, even for a day. Show them that someone cares about them. Maybe that will fire you up, that you want to blow the lid off the spatula business and own that sucker. This book I wrote will not win a Pulitzer Prize, I guarantee you. But it's a book that I'm very proud of. And what we've done for the first time ever is we've made the book free on Kindle today and the next 3 days as a gift for you. Okay? So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to download it and read it. If you think it's crap, leave a review and say it's crap. If you think it's great, tell everybody about it. Tell your friends, I need and want this book to get out, not to make money, but to spread a message. This is important to me. So that's my little gift to you. questions. It's called Rich on Paper, Poor on Life. Rich on Paper, Poor on Life. So what I've done is I've purposely left time to take some questions. I know sometimes people don't like questions because they might get exposed or whatever. I'm all about questions. If I don't have an answer, I'll tell you. So give me some questions. I think there's microphones set up here. Is that correct? Come on up and give me some questions. So what I said to you, did it spark anything in you? Does nobody have a question? I don't buy it. Does this work? Testing, testing. I can go back up and keep speaking. Or I can give you, are you coming to ask a question or you just come back from the washroom? Oh, you're going to ask a question. Excellent. Great. Guys, I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to boast my ego or anything like that. I'm here to serve you. So if you've got questions, come on up and answer. If I don't have the answer, I'll tell you. I won't bullshit you, I promise. But I know some stuff about life. Okay, gentleman over here.
Okay, hi. Name is Wayne from Jamaica. I have a question. I haven't actually started my business yet, but in December, my family and I went to watch the movie Annie, which was about the orphan child. And after the movie, we were all inspired. So I said to the guys, what can we do to give before we receive from this business? And we sat down and brainstormed, and we thought that we're going to start a charity to give to similar things, kids who have never experienced happiness. So each month we'd find an orphanage and have a party for them, kids who have never experienced a party. And that's going to be the first thing we do before we make a dollar.
So is that a question for me?
The question is, we've never done anything like this before. How do we actually maximize doing something charitable for kids?
So you're already committing to doing this party as you talked about?
Yes, we've already started it.
Forget about trying to maximize it. That's the problem in the world today, is that we're all looking for the way to save the world, save the planet. We don't just want to go out and build an orphanage, we want to build 50 orphanages. We don't want to go out and work with one kid, we want to work with 1 million kids. You don't look at any other way. You start today. You do your one party, and what will happen is I often come across people who want to coach, and I'm directing this to everybody if you don't mind, who want to coach people. And they go, well, yeah, how do you get on that stage? You know, there's 3,000 people at that, amazing.com event. How did you get up there? You start with one client. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to do your party. You're going to look in those kids' eyes. You're going to be moved to your core. And I guarantee you, the next time we connect and you stand there, you won't need to ask the question because you'll know either one, this is absolutely what you need to do, or number two is you'll move away and say, this is not what I'm destined for. So I would encourage you to do no strategizing about how you make a bigger impact and just focus on the one party that you're going to create from those kids. And make sure that that's enough. Because often we struggle with allowing ourselves to think and to believe that that's enough. And that stifles us from making more of an impact. I'm not saying don't dream bigger or think bigger, but just allow it to unfold organically as opposed to trying to force it. Thank you. I'm going to ask you not to clap when people say where they're from. I know it's amazing where they're from and all that kind of stuff, but I want to answer as many questions as possible.
Hi, I'm Nicole from Canada. Anyways, my question is, how do people work with you on these projects that you do when you go to the orphanages and the special needs places?
Okay, great. I'm not, with respect, I'm here to serve and I'm here to deliver value, not to speak about my business. Go to my website, philipmckernan.com. That's where you look at. But honestly, thank you. I really appreciate the question, but
okay,
you get what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, excuse me. Lady over here.
Hi, I'm Bev from Canada. I'm a full-time caregiver. My mother has dementia. She's pretty much a vegetable. How can I disconnect from the energy and the despair around her situation and keep my own energy up and focused?
I can ask you a very personal question. Well, it's not very personal. It all depends on your perspective. Your self-worth on a scale of 1 to 10, where would it be? 10 being incredibly high, 1 being very low.
About a 7.
Okay, I'm going to challenge that even though I don't know you. Okay? I'm going to challenge that even though I don't know you. You need to find a way to absolutely elevate your self-worth and believe that you are worth more. And that will allow you to let go of somebody in your life. Does that make any sense?
I think so.
Okay, so it's up here.
Yeah.
So just to get the person that you're a caregiver for is who?
My mother.
Your mother. Okay. So there's a big difference between letting go and giving up. There's a big difference between letting go and giving up. This is not just an entrepreneurial issue that we have in the world, but it's a human issue. We struggle, we think that by moving away from somebody, moving away from a project, we're actually giving up on that person or that project. We're not. So I say this with a tremendous amount of respect, and I'm not going to be able to tie this in a bow right now because this is a bigger conversation. But I need you to walk away and be open to the fact that your self-worth is lower than you think, and you need to find a way to let her go. It's very difficult when you don't believe that you're worth it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dan from Montreal, Canada.
Okay, guys, doesn't matter which respect
Okay,
where
great.
you're from. Let's
Here
go.
we go.
Come on.
You
I'm
said
running out of time.
5% for personal vision. That's the time and the amount of time people spend on their personal vision. I know that it's much less than that for me.
Okay.
And there's also, that's for my first question, like how do we get to focus that much time on personal vision? And the second thing is, and I know that vision changes as you mature, how often should we review this? Once a year, every 5 years, 10 years, 100 years? Go.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the simple question. There's no set time. I don't sit down every year, and I used to start every year in setting goals and create a vision board and everything else. And I'm sorry if I contradict a speaker or many speakers that are on the stage. I don't goal set anymore. I haven't goal set for about 3 or 4 years. And what I find is actually, I almost say to myself, why limit yourself with goals? Which is such an odd thing to say for most people because they're so attached to their goals. Why limit yourself with a set of goals? If I achieved the goals that I created 5 and 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't be standing here today. Because none of those goals had this script in it. And I can tell you right now, and you can call bullshit if you want, you can look me in the eye tonight at the bar or when I get off this stage or even now, and you can really, if you check in with yourself, is this guy's life perfect? No, it's not. But am I aligned to what I do? Yes. So I don't sit down every single year, nor am I saying run out today and force it because it's very intellectual. Often people are looking at what they want in life from a heady place as opposed to a grounded place. But what I'd highly recommend is taking some space for yourself. Not driving to the dentist with the radio off, because some people even struggle with leaving the radio off because they are afraid of silence. But go and lock yourself in a cabin, in a tent for a night. And bring nothing other than a journal. Bring nothing, no technology whatsoever. Lock yourself in a cabin. It's not about a $700 cabin, it's like a $50, $200, whatever it is, and spend one night, bring one blank canvas, which is called your journal, and just dream, and allow it to flow. That's where I would suggest as a starting point.
Thank you.
This lady here.
Hi, I hope I can make myself clear. What happens if you have your fair amount of time to think about the meaning of your life, you have a fair amount of time to be alone, you have your fair amount of time to be with your family, to give and everything, and still have no meaning?
Still have?
No meaning in life.
Okay. So why do I feel that we need to elaborate in this conversation a little bit? Or is this a friend of yours?
No, it's personal.
Are you, I'm just going to be direct. I mean, we're here. Are you in a relationship?
Yes.
Okay. Is he or she here in this room?
Yes.
Okay. Can't go there. Or maybe we can. So if you break it down to the 3 elements, as I talk about work, self, or others, are you deriving meaning from each of those areas?
A little bit, I think.
Okay, so you're doing lots of stuff, but you're not necessarily deriving meaning from what you're doing.
Okay.
You need to look at what you're doing. You need to reevaluate what you're doing or how you're doing it. Okay? Because it sounds to me like you're saying you have all this time. All the time in the world doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if I hang out with my dad and my mom 342 days in the year. If I'm not having meaningful dialogue, it means nothing. How's Rory McIlroy doing? Great, Dad. Yeah, fantastic. How are you doing, Dad? Yeah, no, I'm busy in work. You can have all the time in the world with individuals and people, but if you're not actually really having meaningful, vulnerable conversations, are you having deep, vulnerable conversations in your life?
I hope so. I hope so.
That means you're not.
Okay.
That means you're absolutely not, because you wouldn't say, I hope so, with respect. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys, we've got time for maybe one more question, that's it. I'm sorry.
When I started my online business 3 years ago, my original one, I started out with a really clear vision, and it's gotten completely disintegrated and fragmented. But that was also not a very clear vision.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of the time that I'm running out of time just because of my age and because of my inexperience in doing this.
What age are you?
What am I, what?
What age are you?
I'm 73 almost, yeah.
God, you're old.
I know. And
so hang on.
Yeah.
Am I being obnoxious, or am I just repeating back what she feels every day? There is no vision in this world that you can create when you're coming from a place that I'm running out of time.
Right, I know.
You need, sorry, I take it all back what I just said. You need to get your vision and you need to burn it. And you need to forget about your vision for a moment, because the vision you've created with respect isn't serving you. What you need to do is you need to go and sit with, why do you not feel you have enough time? Why do you not feel you have enough time? That is the only question you should ask yourself, and you need to dig into that. And when you can get to the bottom of that, that will help you.
Right.
Okay? So that's the best I can do right now.
Right.
Thank you very much. When people are scared about time, when they're worried about time, or they're worried about age, or they're worried about things like that, it's not that they're running out of time, it's that they're not necessarily happy with the time they've spent in this world. They don't believe it's meaningful enough, they've created a big impact, or they have enough meaning and depth in their own lives. Something for you to consider. I'm sorry, I'm just running a minute over here. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.